Tidal Wave has now been top 1 for about a month or so, which isn't a very long time, but there's already a lot of really cool announced projects that are supposedly going to be harder than Tidal Wave. So today I'm going to go over some of them that you suggested I talk about, and see which ones are more or less likely to be the next top 1 after Tidal Wave finally dethroning it in probably like 2 years at this point. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton, and you can always change your mind later. Plus I'll see more content like this, and without further ado, let's get into the video. I'm going to arrange these in order of least to most likely to be the next top 1, starting off with a couple that I don't actually think will be top 1, but still technically have a very small chance. Those being Heliopolis and Spectre. Neither of these is aimed to be top 1, and will most likely fall somewhere in the top 10. However, I do want to mention Spectre, as it is I think set to be verified by Zoink if I'm not mistaken, so there's still a slight possibility that he'll accidentally pull another Avernus and it just ends up being top 1. Regardless, it's a really cool looking level, and I would honestly like more attention on it, considering that it hasn't really garnered very much praise and attention recently. And as cool as it would be to see the Zodiac sequel come back to the top 1 spot, I honestly really do like that they're not forcing it to be the number 1. Next up is Eternus, which, don't get me wrong, is very, very difficult, but it's probably too difficult to be the next top 1 right after Tidal Wave. Maybe a few years down the line it'll dethrone whatever we consider to be the hardest level at that point in time, but not today. I only consider it to be slightly more likely than Spectre because technically it is of top 1 difficulty, but unless Riot is okay with it being nerfed, which he very much seems like he isn't okay with, or someone hacks it, which also seems pretty unlikely, we probably won't see this verified in time for it to be our next top 1, if that makes sense. Next up is Ascension to Heaven, which is a really cool level and has a lot of potential to be buffed to be harder than Tidal Wave, given that it is a 5-minute extreme demon. On the surface it has everything going for it. It has really good decoration, so it's going to get an immediate rate. It's a very long level with lots of very difficult gameplay in the entire level, so overall it should seem like it would be our next top 1, but the main issue is that the decoration is pretty much at a halt right now. There's already a lot of finished parts in the level, but there's still a lot that have been unfinished for quite some time, and there hasn't been too much news surrounding the level recently. There was that really big preview across several channels about a year ago now, but since then we haven't really gotten too much news, even since the release of 2.2, which has been kind of disappointing. However, once it is finished, it probably would be the next top 1, considering that not only is it massively difficult, but it's also an extremely long level, so each individual jump doesn't have to be quite as intense because it's spread out throughout a longer level. This is partially why Tidal Wave is so difficult, yet still somewhat fun to play. Now we're getting into some of the extreme demons that I do genuinely think have a shot at dethroning Tidal Wave. The first of which being Silent Acropolis, as there is some decent progress on this level already. From what I understand, the current verifier does have 27% and 58 to 100, with the level at least in 4 runs. Granted, this level isn't necessarily aimed to be top 1, but given that it's a former Impossible level, it has a very good chance of being up there, depending on when it's verified. Personally, this is one of my favorite upcoming extreme demons. It's a really good remake of an old Impossible level that not very many people know or care that much about, and seeing it at the number 1 spot would be quite interesting, considering that we haven't really technically had a silent level as a top 1 before. Like, Silent Clubstep got robbed, and every other former Impossible level that has had the number 1 spot has not had the word silent in the title. So if nothing else, it would be pretty interesting, and the deco is also amazing. I wish the best of luck to Raives, who's verifying this level, and with that let's move on to one that's more likely, Grief, which is one of the harder upcoming levels on this list. Currently this level is set to be verified by Doggy, who in my opinion is still pretty underrated. I would have put this towards the number 1 spot if it weren't for 2 things. One, Doggy hasn't really started that much progress on it yet, although I'm sure once he does, he will be able to complete it relatively quickly, as Slaughterhouse is a level that he has a lot of history with, and this is the natural successor / predecessor to Slaughterhouse. The second is there has been some talk on Ice Cave's end of simply just nerfing the level and not forcing it to be top 1. However, I mean, in its current state, it's got a pretty good chance. It's a relatively long level, clocking in at 2 minutes and roughly 50 seconds, which is about the length of Tidal Wave. However, this level has received a lot of backlash considering it's the second Slaughterhouse-like level to be proposed as another upcoming top 1, so it's a mixed bag. However, if Doggy started making progress on it and Ice Cave decided to not nerf the level, I think it has a pretty good chance of becoming the next top 1 after Tidal Wave, but because of those factors I think it has less of a chance than the next levels I'm going to mention. Next up is Vment, which is a really underrated top 1 that I wish more people paid attention to. There have been a couple players who have made pretty good progress on this, one of whom was Radium, however he did have to drop the level. Poltergeist also has some significant progress on the level, and given it's an open verification, it's definitely more likely to become the next top 1 than a few of its predecessors in this video. This is a really cool upcoming project that I have been a fan of for a long time. It's themed around the Terraria Calamity mod, and It has a boss fight, which is not something I think we've seen in a top 1 pretty much ever. So yeah, it'd be quite interesting to see if more players can get more progress on this level, especially top players who are a bit underrated looking for some more recognition. Looking at you, W Popoff. The next level I wanted to mention that I have gotten requests to make a video on insistently for like months. Flamewall, a whopping 7-minute upcoming top 1. If it weren't for the fact that 1 Alpha Helix unfortunately had to drop the level, I would have definitely put this one as the most likely, considering he got 60% on the level before he dropped it. But since he has dropped it, there have been other players who have managed to get pretty significant progress, such as 55 to 100, which is a pretty significant run for a 7-minute level. This is a really interesting upcoming project. It very much keeps the level fresh throughout the entire 7 minutes, which is pretty impressive considering that even travel levels are 1 or 2 minutes shorter. It also does that thing where it combines a lot of elements from 1.9 and sort of that era of the game in terms of the decoration style and all of that, with modern day standards in terms of the quality of levels that we produce today. So yeah, I can understand why a lot of people really like this level and spammed the fuck out of my DMs to talk about it. If this level ends up not being the next top 1 after Tidal Wave, it still has a very good shot of doing so after the next top 1, because it's 7 minutes. If you made the entire level even just slightly harder consistently, it would bump up like 50 spots on the demons list. So yeah, really cool level, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Next up is one of my favorite upcoming extreme demons, Amethyst by Mist and More. The attention to detail in this level is absolutely insane, and I cannot say how impressed I am with how this level turned out from where it started. Beastular is currently the set verifier and already has beaten levels like Slaughterhouse, so once he starts making progress on this level, I'm fairly confident that it'll be out soon enough to at least be more likely to be our next top 1 than any previously mentioned level. While the level started out originally as sort of a sequel/remake of the Golden, it's become much more than that, and while it has some similar structure to it, has a lot more original content, theming, and much higher decoration quality than the Golden or Avernus. Again, I'm a huge fan of this level, and I'm very excited to see it verified. Good luck to Beastular on this absolutely insane level. The next 2 extreme demons are by far the most likely to dethrone Tidal Wave. Some of the ones I just mentioned are decently likely, but these are much more likely, at least in my opinion, just from where things seem to be going. Those 2 are this word, but spelled with a Y that I will not say because YouTube doesn't like that, and of course the Apocalyptic Trilogy. Lisp's level is absolutely insane, very much going for an effect-focused level, and the reason I put this high is because there is a very good chance that Zoink is set to be the verifier, trying to make this the next top 1, which gives the level a huge boost in likelihood on whether it'll be top 1, considering that Zoink also verified Tidal Wave and actually our current top 3. So if anyone's going to know how to make it harder than Tidal Wave, it's going to be him. The reason I say Apocalyptic Trilogy is more likely is because Lisp's level hasn't seemed to exactly been finished yet, and if it is finished, it still has to go through the entire verification process, whereas Apocalyptic Trilogy has already had some progress on it made by Trick. On top of that, Trick seems to be preparing very heavily for this level, considering he beat Tidal Wave, Avernus, and other pretty insufferable levels such as Tunnel of Despair pretty recently, seemingly in preparation to beat Apocalyptic Trilogy as the new top 1, and to make it decently harder than Tidal Wave. So yeah, I think Apocalyptic Trilogy is the most likely to be our next upcoming top 1, that's my official prediction. That spot might be taken by Lisp's level, and other levels with decent chances are Amethyst, Flamewall, and such. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like, subscribe, yada, you've heard it a billion times. Click the video cards on the end screen now if you want to see more of my content. Yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.